The Alienware Aurora R11 is one of the latest PCs to take advantage of the new Nividia GeForce 3090 GPU and is one of the most powerful pre-built PCs on the market. The PS5, on the other hand, is the latest from Sony and certainly a contender in the PC world. But the question is, how well does the PS5 stack up against the 8K powerhouse, the Alienware Aurora R11? Let's talk specs. The PS5 offers up some pretty good hardware considering the price. In terms of CPU, the PS5 rocks its custom 8-core AMD Zen 2 GPU. That CPU really is no joke because it is capable of up to 3.5 GHz of processing speed. So this basically means that everything will run extremely fast, and it makes things much smoother in games. Not only that, but games can be much more advanced. For example, having way bigger worlds and much more stuff packed into them. Games will be more demanding than what they were on the PS4 or Xbox One, for instance, because now developers have double the processing speed to work with. Now, by no means does that mean it's better than what Alienware has, because it really isn't. In fact, not even close. The Aurora is really expensive and has some serious components packed into it. The CPU is the Intel Core i9-10900K, and that has upwards of 5.3 GHz of processing speed. Not only is that a hell of a lot more than what the PS5 has, but the i9 actually has 2 extra cores as well. This level of processing power likely won't be available on PlayStation for another 5 years when the Pro version of the PS5 comes out. But, like anything, it's all relative to price, because the i9 10th Gen CPU in the Aurora costs $540. That's $40 more than the entire PS5 combined. Pair that Aurora CPU with its GPU and you have a PC capable of 8K resolution, if your screen can support it. The Aurora is rocking the Nividia GeForce RTX 3090, which is honestly insane if I'm being totally honest. This GPU can do 8K at 60 frames per second, with ray tracing and HDR enabled. If you can afford all $1,600 of it, this card will last you a decade. On the other hand, the PS5 has a custom AMD RDNA 2 GPU. This doesn't do 8K, but the good news is that it does do 4K up to 120 frames per second with ray tracing and HDR. That's no 8K RTX 3090, but that is actually incredible considering that it's a tenth of the price. Moving over to the RAM side of things, the PS5 has a 16GB RAM capacity, which is decent, but nothing special. The Aurora, though, has 64GB RAM. This, in simple terms, means that the Aurora will be able to hold more information to be processed by the CPU every single millisecond. That's 48GB more than the PS5. Now, this goes hand in hand with the 2TB SSD that sits inside the Aurora. The PS5 does have an SSD as well, for the first time in PlayStation history. But that CPU is only 825GB in comparison. Not only that, but the PS5 lacks a secondary drive. What it does have is a slot so that an external drive can be attached. And I imagine a lot of people will have to end up using that given the lack of storage. The Aurora does have a secondary drive, a 2TB hard drive in fact. Not that that was even necessary, but what does it matter when you're already spending $3,600 on a gaming PC? It's fairly obvious that the PC is significantly better than the PS5, but that was never going to be a competition. You gotta look at it relative to price. The PS5 is 7 times cheaper than the Alienware Aurora R11, and for that, you definitely get more value for your money. What about the games? PC and PS5 offer very different pros and cons when it comes to games. For instance, the PS5 offers a lot of really great single-player exclusives, like Uncharted, Spider-Man, Last of Us, among hundreds of other games. Whereas PC put all their skill points into offering a much wider multiplayer experience. PC also outright has a larger game library than both Xbox and PS5 combined. PCs have all the newest games and those that date back 20 years. The PS5's backwards compatibility is extremely limited in comparison because it can really only play games that were on the PS4. PS3 and earlier consoles just aren't supported. Ironically, PC actually has more of the older console PlayStation exclusives than the PS5 does. So if that's something that interests you, then the PC is a better option. Not only that, but in recent years, some of the newer PlayStation exclusives have actually been released on PC. But that's not to say the PS5 won't have any exclusives, because 90% of the exclusives will only be on the PS5. So regardless, you still need PlayStation if you want to play the exclusives. A big issue that has plagued consoles for a while, though, is the ever-increasing price of new games. Games release at $70 these days on consoles, and digital versions never really seem to drop that much in price. PC games, on the other hand, are much cheaper. New games don't cost as much, and the older ones are often on discount. Not only that, but games are refundable on PC. That's something PS5 still lacks. Another big aspect that divides the PS5 from the Alienware Aurora R11 is the experience you get from each. They both have different features. For instance, the aesthetic, user interface, and the general versatility of both gaming machines are polar opposite. Except for the aesthetic, maybe because both the PS5 and Aurora share the same kind of alien look, no pun intended. But with the new and refined PS5 user interface, the usability of the console has never been easier and more rewarding. PS5 offers great new features such as split-screen mode, a new recording system, and a lot of other things, but it mostly stays true to the PlayStation look. The Aurora R11 runs Windows 10, so the user interface is always going to be pretty familiar, but it's not necessarily made for gaming, so the experience may not be as smooth. One advantage having Windows as the UI does have, though, is that it is way more versatile. It allows for an extensive amount of third-party apps that can completely change the gaming experience. Not to mention games are moddable, so games virtually never go out of fashion. The PC is generally way more versatile due to the Windows operating system. So what's the verdict then? Both the PS5 and the Alienware Aurora R11 offer a lot. On one hand, you have the more affordable PS5, which appeals more to the casual gamers or those without a hole to burn in their pocket. Then, on the other hand, the Aurora R11 is a tempting offer for those with an itch for hardcore gaming and a big budget. For just $500 or less for the digital version, you can't go wrong with the PS5 because it is a powerful piece of kit for the price, but it won't keep up with the PC as premium as the Aurora. So it really comes down to three things: your budget, how passionate you are for gaming, and what kind of experience you are looking for. Anyway, what are you still doing here? Like, subscribe, and watch some of this stuff here.